The first time I saw my daughter-in-law text someone named Mama, I smiled. The second time I felt something cold slip down my spine. That's how it began, quietly, almost tenderly, like a thread pulling loose from the hem of a dress. Nothing loud, nothing dramatic. Just a small detail, one I wouldn't have noticed if the kitchen hadn't been so still that morning. I remember the smell of ginger tea rising from the cup in my hands. I remember the soft tick-tick of the wall clock above the pantry door. And I remember Paisley, my daughter-in-law, standing with her back to me, her shoulders hunched slightly forward as she tapped quickly on her phone. It was the way her fingers moved, sharp, nervous, nothing like her usual calm. Her phone chimed, once, then again. She hesitated before lifting it, as if deciding whether to hide it or read it. When she finally tilted the screen upward, I saw a name flash across the top. Mama, a small, harmless word, or so I thought. "You're up early," I said, trying not to sound like I was studying her, trying not to sound like a woman who just walked in on something she wasn't meant to see. She startled, her phone slipping slightly in her hand. "Oh yes, I couldn't sleep." She turned around then, smiling too quickly, the kind of smile someone gives when they realize they've been caught off guard. Her hair was twisted into a messy bun. She looked young, fragile almost, and in that moment I felt guilty for noticing her screen. "You want pancakes?" I offered. "I'm making some for Connor." At the mention of my son's name, something changed. Her posture straightened, her smile softened into something more genuine. "Yes, please, he loves your pancakes." We moved around the kitchen the way women often do, quietly, rhythmically, one stirring, one reaching, one setting out silverware. A small domestic dance. And for a brief moment I let myself believe everything was normal, that Mama was just her own mother. That the tension I'd sensed was only in my imagination. And then her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it so fast I almost didn't see the message light up. Almost, but I did, and my stomach dropped. Because the way her face shifted, first fear, then irritation, then something like pleading, told me that whoever Mama was, it wasn't someone she wanted me to know about. I didn't say a word. I simply flipped the pancake on the pan and watched it rise with a soft hiss. But inside, something unsettled began to move. A suspicion, a whisper, a knowing, not the truth, not yet, just a feeling that the girl I had welcomed into my home, into my family, into my son's life, was hiding a piece of herself, a piece that was about to unravel everything. Before I tell you the rest, you need to understand how life looked back then, before the cracks began to appear. Back then, I considered myself a blessed woman, tired, maybe, and learning to navigate a quiet house after my husband's passing, but blessed nonetheless. My son Connor was my pride. He was the kind of man who held doors open without thinking and called me every Sunday even after he moved out. Gentle, hardworking, loyal to his core. When he brought Paisley home for the first time, I had been so relieved. She seemed sweet, soft-spoken, thoughtful. The kind of woman who touched your arm when she laughed and always asked if you wanted help carrying groceries. She had these warm brown eyes that made you feel seen, even in a crowded room. I remember thinking, my son chose well. And for a while it seemed true. Their engagement was simple and heartfelt, the wedding small but elegant, and when they moved into my home afterward to save money for their own, I welcomed them without hesitation. People warned me, of course. Mothers-in-law should keep emotional distance. Give them privacy. Don't get too involved. But I wasn't worried. I trusted Connor. I trusted Paisley. I trusted the family we were building. And in those early days, everything felt easy. We shared dinners, laughed over burnt garlic bread, watched movies on quiet Friday nights. Paisley and I would tend to my little herb garden together, her carefully pinching the basil stems while telling me stories from her childhood. A motherless childhood, she'd said. Her mother had passed when she was a teenager. Her father remarried shortly after, a woman Paisley never grew close to. She told me this with a sad little shrug, as if it were something she had learned to accept. Maybe that's why the first message from Mama didn't alarm me. Maybe that's why the second one did, because I knew she didn't have a mother, not anymore. At least not the kind she ever spoke of. So who was Mama? A sister, an aunt, a childhood friend, a mentor, or something else entirely? The question sat in my mind like a stone, heavy and cold. And yet I told myself to let it go, to respect her privacy. To trust her, but trust is a delicate thing. All it takes is one small jolt, one unexpected buzz of a phone, one glimpse of a reaction that doesn't make sense, and suddenly the ground beneath your feet tilts. I didn't know then just how steep that tilt would become or how hard I would fall, but I felt it beginning, in the kitchen with the soft golden smell of pancakes, and a message from Mama that made my daughter-in-law's hands tremble. That was the first morning. The first clue that something was not what it seemed, but not the last, and certainly not the worst. For the next few days I tried to convince myself that what I'd seen was nothing. People used nicknames, people used terms of affection. Mama could have been anybody. But the mind, especially a mother's mind, is a tricky thing. Once it grabs hold of a thread, it keeps tugging, pulling, weaving possibilities you don't want to acknowledge. And that thread kept catching at me. It was in the way Paisley started carrying her phone with her everywhere. Into the bathroom, into the laundry room, even when she stepped into the backyard for a moment of air. It was in the way she'd angle the screen away from me, even when sitting across from me at the dinner table. She'd never done that before, and Connor, my sweet, oblivious son, didn't notice a thing. Love made him soft, made him blind. He'd come home tired in the evenings, kiss Paisley on the cheek, wash up, eat dinner, then fall asleep on the couch with his head resting on her shoulder. Everything looked normal from the outside, but I was watching the inside. I watched the way Paisley would tense whenever he leaned too close while she was holding her phone. I watched the split second of panic she tried to hide when he asked, "Who texted you, sweetheart?" Her favorite answer, one she used too often to be true. "Oh, just someone from the office." Yet she never mentioned a single coworker by name, not once in all the months I'd known her. It only made the word mama echo louder in my mind. One evening, Paisley offered to cook dinner, a rarity but a sweet gesture. She moved gracefully around the kitchen, chopping onions, humming softly under her breath. Connor was flipping through channels in the living room, and I sat at the table peeling garlic, the familiar sting clinging to my fingers. Her phone vibrated on the counter. A sharp, insistent buzz. She froze mid-chop. "Paisley," I said quietly. She blinked as if waking from a trance. "Yes, you stopped moving, sweetheart." "Oh, it's nothing." She wiped her hands on a towel and reached for the phone, but not fast enough. In that tiny pause, I saw her eyes widen the slightest bit, a flash of alarm, quick but unmistakable. Connor called from the living room. "Dinner ready soon?" Paisley's breath came out shaky. "Almost." She grabbed the phone, rushed into the hallway, and shut the door behind her. Not softly, firmly. The vibration had stopped, but the silence it left behind felt louder. Even the onions stopped sizzling, as if the whole kitchen was holding its breath. A minute passed, then another. When she finally returned, her cheeks were pale, lips pressed thin. She didn't meet my eyes. I said nothing, because sometimes silence does more than confrontation. Silence makes the truth uncomfortable. Silence makes people reveal themselves. And that night, while we ate her half-burnt stir-fry, Connor praising it as if she were a professional chef, I studied her face. The jumpiness, the quietness, the distracted nods. Something was unraveling, and she knew I sensed it. Another clue came 2 days later. It was a Saturday morning. Connor had gone to help a friend move apartments, and Paisley had gone into town to run errands. I was folding laundry in the living room when I heard her car pull into the driveway sooner than expected. She came inside quickly, too quickly, closing the door softly like she didn't want me to know she was home. But homes are like bodies. They breathe. They shift. They tell you when someone is inside them. I walked out to greet her. "Back so soon?" Her eyes darted to the laundry basket before landing on me. "Oh yes, I forgot something." "What did you forget?" I asked gently. Her throat bobbed. "Just my purse." Her purse sat on the entryway table, right where she'd left it. I didn't point it out. I simply stepped aside. She grabbed it with shaking hands, murmured, "I'll be back," and rushed out again. But something fell from her coat pocket, a folded piece of paper, small enough to go unnoticed if you weren't looking directly at the floor. "Paisley," I called after her, but the door had already closed. The paper lay by the shoe rack, delicate as a secret. I bent slowly, my knees aren't what they used to be, and picked it up. It wasn't a receipt, not a list, not a note. It was a business card. Black with gold lettering, a name I didn't recognize, a number I didn't know, and on the back scribbled in hurried handwriting. "Ask for her directly, tell them Mama sent you." My hand trembled just once, but enough to scare me. Who was Mama, and why was Paisley being sent to someone through her? Something was wrong, deeply wrong, but I still hoped that it might be something innocent, a private matter. A personal struggle, a misunderstanding, because every mother-in-law wants to believe the best about the woman her son loves. I tucked the card into my apron pocket. When Paisley returned later, her eyes searched my face as if checking whether I'd discovered something. But I only smiled softly and asked, "Did you find what you needed?" She nodded but didn't speak. Her silence was the kind that holds fear behind it. That night, long after Connor and Paisley went to bed, I sat alone at the dining table. The house creaked around me, old wood settling, pipes cooling, the wind brushing against the windows. It was a familiar loneliness, one I'd grown used to since my husband passed. But that night, it felt heavier. The business card sat in front of me, its gold lettering glowing under the dim kitchen light. "Ask for her directly. Tell them Mama sent you." I traced the edge of the card with my thumb, not out of curiosity, out of dread. Because I was beginning to see a truth I didn't want to face. My daughter-in-law was living a life I knew nothing about, and whatever Mama meant to her, it wasn't love, it wasn't comfort, it wasn't family, it was something darker, something secret. Something that had the power to destroy my son's life and mine if it ever came to light. But the truth has a way of surfacing, sometimes gently, sometimes violently, and in our home it was rising like a storm cloud, thickening the air, preparing to break. I just didn't know how soon it would break or how deeply it would cut. That business card stayed on my mind for days. I tucked it into the small drawer of my bedside table, beneath old birthday cards and a dried rose Connor had given me when he was 10. I didn't want to look at it, but I also couldn't throw it away. It felt like a warning, a clue, a tiny spark that could lead to a wildfire. And the more I watched Paisley, the more I felt that spark start to grow. Little things began to shift. She stopped joining me in the garden. She stopped humming in the kitchen. She stopped asking about Connor's day. Most days she looked like she was waiting for something. A message, a call, a signal. And then reacting to that message like it could make or break her entire world. I'd walk into the kitchen and see her sitting at the counter, staring at her phone with a look I couldn't decipher. Fear, anticipation, guilt, all tangled together. And when she noticed me, she'd smile too quickly, laugh too loudly, or change the subject too fast. You learn to read people differently as a mother-in-law, not with suspicion, but with intuition. Women who run households learn to sense when someone is hiding a truth. Women who raise sons learn to sense when someone is lying to them. And Paisley, she was lying, not directly, but by omission, by silence, by every careful little step away from transparency. It was on a Wednesday afternoon when the next sign appeared. Connor had left early for work, and Paisley claimed she also had an early meeting at her office. I was washing dishes when I noticed her car still sitting in the driveway. At first I thought she simply forgot something, but then an hour passed, then two, she never left. The house was quiet, too quiet. I finally walked down the hallway toward the guest room door, which was slightly ajar. Her voice drifted out in low whispers. Yes, I understand," I said. "I'll be there. I won't fail again." Again, that word made my breath catch. "I just need a little more time," she said, her voice shaking. "He doesn't suspect a thing. My son." My heart dropped into my stomach. A soft thud followed, maybe a fist pressed to a table, maybe the rustle of her pacing. "I know what's at stake, Mama. You don't need to remind me." My grip tightened on the hallway wall. Mama again, but spoken like someone addressing a superior, not a parent. Whoever this Mama was, she held power over Paisley, influence, control, and Paisley, my gentle, quiet daughter-in-law, was afraid of her. I stepped back before she could open the door. My heartbeat echoed through my chest like a drum. I went into the kitchen and pretended to be making tea when she finally emerged. "Oh," she said, startled. "I didn't know you were up." "I've been up all morning," I said softly. "Everything all right?" She hesitated too long, then smiled, too bright, too forced. "Yes, just work stress." Her eyes were red around the edges. No woman cries over work at 9 in the morning, but I let her lie. Sometimes it's better to watch a pot simmer than to remove the lid too quickly. The next clue came unexpectedly. 2 days later, on a rainy Friday evening, I was in the laundry room folding towels when a small buzzing sound came from Paisley's jeans pocket. She tossed them into the hamper earlier. I shouldn't have touched them, but the buzz was sharp, insistent, like an alarm. Before I could think twice, I reached in and pulled out the phone. I didn't unlock it. I didn't need to. The message preview was visible on the locked screen. "Mama, did you tell him yet?" My hand froze. "Tell him what? Tell Connor what?" Another buzz. "Mama, you're running out of time." My breath left me in a shudder. Footsteps echoed down the hall, Paisley's steps. She approached quickly, too quickly, as if she already knew her phone was missing. I placed it back into her jeans pocket just moments before she entered. "Oh," she said, feigning casualness. "I'm just grabbing my laundry." Her eyes scanned the room, first me, then the hamper, then my hands. She knew, she sensed. Something in her posture told me she feared what I might have seen. "Everything okay?" I asked gently. She swallowed hard. "Yes, just laundry." She grabbed the jeans and held them to her chest as if shielding the phone from the world, then fled the room. I stood there, hands trembling, towels half folded. Whoever Mama was, she wanted Paisley to reveal something to my son, and Paisley was terrified. Terrified enough to lie to him, to me, to herself. That night I found Connor sitting on the porch, sipping tea, watching the rain drizzle down the garden steps. "Mom," he asked, "you all right? You look tired." Tired wasn't the right word, concerned, confused. Afraid of the storm that I felt gathering, but I couldn't tell him, not yet, not without evidence, not without understanding the extent of what Paisley was hiding. So I sat beside him and said, "Just thinking too much, that's all." He chuckled softly. "You always think too much." I wanted to smile, but my heart was heavy. I looked at his face, my boy, my only child, the one I raised with everything I had. The idea that someone in my own home could be lying to him, using him, it was almost unbearable. "Connor," I said slowly, trying to choose my words with care, "how are things with Paisley?" He looked surprised. "Good, why?" I've noticed she seems stressed lately." "Oh, that." He waved a dismissive hand. "Work stuff, her manager's been giving her a hard time." "Work again?" The excuse she leaned on for every lie. "Did she tell you that?" I asked. "Yes." I nodded, though inside my stomach twisted. Connor trusted her completely. He saw no reason to doubt her, but I did. And the truth was closing in around us, tightening like a rope being pulled from both ends. The final hint, the one that shifted suspicion into certainty, came 4 days later. I was in my bedroom folding sheets when I heard a soft knock on the door. Paisley entered, her face pale, her movements jittery. "Can I borrow your car keys?" she asked. "Mine won't start." "Of course," I said, handing them to her. "Everything all right?" "Yes," she lied again, but her hands were shaking. She left in a hurry, almost running out the door. Her perfume lingered behind her, floral but sharp. A scent that reminded me of fear more than elegance. After she left, I walked into the hallway and noticed her purse on the entry table. Her purse. The one she took everywhere. The one she never left behind. Even when she said she forgot it the other day, she'd come back within minutes to grab it. But not today. Something urged me, an instinct deeper than logic, to check inside. Not to invade her privacy, but to protect my son. I opened it slowly. Her wallet, a compact mirror, lip balm, and a folded paper tucked into a side pocket. I pulled it out carefully. It was another note, handwritten, rushed, the letters uneven. "Meeting moved to Saturday. Bring the documents. Mama will be there. Do not come alone. Do not come alone." My knees weakened. Whatever Paisley was involved in, it wasn't benign. It wasn't harmless. And it wasn't something my son knew about. Mama wasn't a nickname. Mama was a person who had expectations, deadlines, authority, and Paisley, my daughter-in-law, was working under her, or for her, or running from her. The truth was closing in, tight, suffocating. I knew then that I had to uncover the full truth before it destroyed my family, because secrets like these don't stay hidden forever, they explode, and ours was about to. I didn't sleep the night before the meeting. I lay awake listening to the ceiling fan hum weakly above me, cutting the darkness into slow, restless slices. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that note again. "Mama will be there, do not come alone." By sunrise, I'd made up my mind. If Paisley was walking into something dangerous, I needed to know. If she was betraying my son, I needed to know. If Mama was a person who could influence, threaten, or control her, I needed to know, not to destroy her, but to understand what kind of truth was being woven behind my son's back. Paisley left the house at 8:15 a.m. sharp. She didn't know I was awake. She tried to be quiet, but fear has a sound, and I heard it in every step she took down the stairs. Her breath came fast, her keys rattled, her shoes scraped the floor. When she finally slipped out the door, I counted to 30 before grabbing my coat. I didn't need the car, she had taken mine, her own still sat broken in the driveway, so I called a taxi. I watched from the window as she drove off, her silhouette stiff, shoulders tense like someone bracing for a blow. The taxi arrived with a soft honk. "Follow the black sedan that just turned onto Maple," I told the driver. He hesitated. "You okay, ma'am?" "Yes," I said, "but please don't lose sight of her." He nodded and pulled onto the road. My heart thudded against my ribs, slow at first, then quicker, each beat punching through my chest as we followed her through winding streets, past downtown, and finally toward the edges of the city. Buildings thinned, traffic died, silence grew, then Paisley turned into a parking lot, a storage facility. Gray metal units lined in long rows, numbers painted in fading white. A place people go to hide things, not to find them. She parked near Unit 47. "Stop here," I whispered. I watched her step out of the car, clutching a manila envelope to her chest like it was a lifeline. Her eyes darted around. She wasn't looking for me, she was looking for someone else. Someone she was afraid would already be watching. Then a woman stepped out from behind the row, older, taller than Paisley, dressed sharply despite the dust of the place. Hair pinned tightly at the back of her head, she walked with authority, command, presence. Paisley stiffened. "Mama," she whispered, so this was her. This was the woman behind the messages. This was the one pulling the strings. But even from a distance, something about the interaction felt wrong, not familial, not tender, not warm. This mama wasn't someone you hugged. This was someone you reported to. I opened the taxi door slowly and stepped out, keeping behind the row of storage units. The wind whipped around me, carrying fragments of their conversation. "Didn't bring him," Mama said sharply. "I couldn't," Paisley replied, voice trembling. "He wasn't supposed to know. I told you to come with him." "I tried, he had work." Mama scoffed, a sound full of disgust. "Excuses, always excuses." Paisley shrank back, my heart twisted. This wasn't my daughter-in-law lying to my son for fun or malice. This was a woman cornered, fear radiated from her in waves. Mama stepped closer. "Do you have the documents?" Paisley held out the envelope. "Yes, but please just give me more time. I don't want to ruin things with him. He's a good man." Mama laughed, a cold, joyless sound. "You weren't brought here to find a good man, Paisley. You were brought here to marry him." My hand flew to my mouth. "Marry him, brought here," my legs weakened. What did that mean? Paisley whispered something I couldn't hear. Mama snapped louder. "I said I care about him," Paisley repeated, voice cracking. "I didn't expect to. But I do, I love him. Please don't make me love." Mama hissed. "Your job is not love, your job is obedience." Job, the word struck me like a slap. "Now hand me the documents," Mama ordered. Paisley hesitated just 1 second, but Mama noticed. She snatched the envelope from her hands, tore it open, scanned the papers inside, then nodded with satisfaction. "Good, this is exactly what we needed." Paisley swallowed. "So we're done? After this I can leave it all behind?" Mama smiled without warmth. "Oh, sweetheart. You and I both know that's not how this works." Paisley's shoulders sagged, a quiet sob escaped her. "Please," she whispered, "if you ever cared about me even a little, let me go." Mama stepped close enough to grip Paisley's chin. "Hard, cruel. I raised you," she said coldly. "Don't you dare insult me by pretending you're better than your past." Raised, the word hit me like ice water. This wasn't her mother, but this woman had raised her. Then who was she? A guardian, a caretaker, a woman from a group home, a leader of something darker. I didn't have the answers, not yet, but what I had was enough to break my heart. Paisley wasn't betraying my son, not intentionally, not maliciously. She was being controlled. Before Mama could say anything else, I stepped out from behind the metal row. "Let her go." My voice cut through the cold air like a blade. Both women spun around, Paisley's face drained of color. Mom," she whispered, "not my name, not Mrs. Hale, not ma'am." "Mom," my heart cracked. Mama's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" I stepped closer, spine straight, hands steady despite the trembling inside. "I'm Connor's mother," I said calmly, "and this conversation is over." Mama's lips curled. "Ah, the mother-in-law, the one Paisley was too afraid to disappoint." I ignored her. Paisley was shaking visibly now. Tears streamed down her face. I didn't want you to find out like this," she whispered. I walked to her slowly and placed a hand on her arm. "Paisley," I said softly, "whatever this is, you don't have to face it alone anymore." But Mama stepped forward, eyes blazing. "She belongs to me?" "No," I said, turning to her. "She belongs to herself." Mama scoffed. "You think she married your son for love?" I didn't flinch, I didn't look away. "I think she married him hoping for a life better than the one you gave her," I said. "And from what I've seen today, I was right." Mama's nostrils flared. "You don't know what she is," she hissed. "No," I said, "but I know what she is." "And what's that?" she sneered. "A bad woman." For the first time, Paisley's sobs quieted. Mama stepped closer, but I raised my chin. You're not taking her anywhere, I said firmly. Not today, not ever again. The air was thick with tension, wind whipping dust between us. Mama stared at me long, hard, calculating. Then she smiled, a thin, menacing smile. This isn't over, she said. She walked past us, heels clicking against the concrete, disappearing behind the row of units. Only when she was gone did Paisley collapse. I caught her just before her knees hit the ground. She clung to me, shaking violently. I'm so sorry, she cried. I never wanted you to find out. I never wanted Connor to know. I didn't choose this life. I didn't choose any of it. I held her as tightly as a mother holds a wounded child. Paisley, I whispered, tears in my own eyes, you are safe now. Whatever happens next, we face it together. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The truth had surfaced, but the consequences had not. And Mama wasn't finished. Paisley cried in my arms for what felt like forever. When she finally pulled away, her face was streaked with tears, her breath coming in sharp, shallow bursts. She looked like someone who had spent years learning how not to cry and had forgotten how to stop once she started. I'm sorry, she whispered again. I'm so sorry. For what? I asked gently. For being afraid, for surviving something I don't understand yet. For trying to protect the man you love, she lowered her head. For lying, she said, to both of you. I placed my hands on her shoulders. Paisley, I said, I can forgive a lie, but I can't help with a secret you don't share. She wiped her face with trembling fingers. I want to tell you everything I do, but if I do, you might hate me. Connor might hate me. My heart ached. Hate you for what? I whispered. For being trapped by a woman who calls herself Mama. For being raised in fear instead of love. Her lips parted in surprise as if she didn't expect me to understand. I heard enough, I added softly. Enough to know you're not the villain in this. She sank onto the concrete edge of the storage unit walkway, breathing heavily. That woman, she began, voice cracking. She's not my mother, not even close. I figured, I said. She ran the group home I lived in, Paisley continued. After my mom died and my dad remarried, my stepmother didn't want me. I was 16, and Mama, she took me in. But it wasn't kindness, it was control, all control. I sat beside her, letting her speak at her own pace. The wind carried the faint smell of rust and dust from the metal units. It felt like the kind of place where people hid their pasts, not confronted them. She paid for my schooling, Paisley said, but not out of love. She said it was an investment. She said I owed her my life. She made sure I never forgot it. Is that why she sends you those messages? I asked. Paisley nodded. She has something on everyone from that home, records, files, secrets. She uses them to control us. And the documents you brought her today? Paisley closed her eyes. Fresh tears slipped down her cheeks. I thought if I gave them to her, she'd let me go. She promised she would. What were they? She turned toward me, guilt tightening her mouth. Connor's financial statements, she whispered. I felt something inside me go still, cold. You took my son's private documents? Yes, she sobbed. But I didn't want to. She made me. She said if I didn't give her something valuable, she'd ruin my life, my job, my future. She said she'd tell Connor lies about me so he'd leave me. My breath came slow and painful. Betrayal always feels like a stab, but this time I knew the wound wasn't meant for me, nor for my son. It was meant for her. She used you, I said quietly. She trained you to be afraid, to obey. Paisley nodded miserably. And this marriage? I asked. Did she push you toward Connor? Paisley shook her head quickly. No, that part wasn't her. She found out about him later. After we got engaged, she said I should make myself useful. But I swear to you, I married him because I loved him, not because of her. I studied her face, the fear, the desperation, the hope. I believed her. Paisley, I said, why didn't you tell Connor? Her voice broke. Because I thought if he knew the truth, he'd look at me like I'm dirty, like I'm broken, like I'm one of her. Oh, sweetheart, I whispered, pulling her into another embrace. You are nothing like her. She sobbed into my shoulder, her entire body shaking. When she finally calmed, I helped her stand. We can't stay here, I said. Let's go home. Paisley hesitated. But she might come back. She won't, I said firmly. Not today. She didn't ask how I knew, but she trusted me enough to follow. We called another taxi and rode back in silence. Paisley kept her head against the window, watching the world blur past. I kept my eyes forward, thinking, planning. If Mama wasn't done with us, as she warned, then we had to be ready. The moment we reached the house, Paisley collapsed onto the couch, exhausted, her hands twisted in her lap. Should we tell Connor? She whispered. I don't want to keep lying to him anymore. But I don't want him to think I married him under someone else's orders. He won't, I said, but we'll tell him carefully together when the time is right. Her eyes widened. You'd stand with me even after what I did? I touched her cheek gently. You walked into my family with secrets, but not by choice. I won't punish you for surviving. She covered her face with her hands and began crying again, but this time it wasn't the sharp, panicked sobbing from before. It was relief. Release. For the first time, she wasn't alone. Connor came home later that evening. He saw the puffiness around Paisley's eyes. He saw the tension in the room, and immediately concern clouded his face. What happened? He asked, dropping his keys. Paisley froze. I stepped forward. Connor, I said gently, your wife and I need to talk to you. There are things you should know, but she needs rest first. Let me explain a little tonight. She'll tell you the rest when she's ready. He looked between us, confused and worried. Is she sick? Is it us? Did something? No, I said quickly. It's not you, and she hasn't betrayed you, but she's been carrying something heavy, something from before she met you. Paisley looked up, eyes meeting his. I love you, she whispered. Please believe that. His expression softened. I do. Always? A tear slid down Paisley's cheek. Connor knelt beside her, stroking her arm. Whatever it is, we'll handle it together. Just tell me when you're ready. I stepped away to give them space, though my presence remained a silent support in the room. Connor was a good man. He always had been. And now I prayed that goodness was strong enough to withstand the storm that Mama had begun. That night, after they went to their room, I stayed awake at the dining table thinking Mama had taken financial documents. Why? What did she want with them? Blackmail, leverage, something else? The note said, meeting moved to Saturday, bring the documents. This meant there were more meetings, more plans. She wasn't finished. And if she believed she owned Paisley, if she believed she could manipulate my son, then she didn't know me at all. I wasn't a woman who folded under pressure. I wasn't a mother who let someone threaten her child. And I certainly wasn't going to let some self-appointed mama destroy the life Paisley and Connor were trying to build. So I made a decision. A quiet one, a steady one, a mother's kind of decision. I would confront the woman again, but not in fear, not in anger, in strategy. If Mama wanted to play a game of control, she was about to learn something. A real mother doesn't control. A real mother protects. And there is no force more dangerous or more righteous than a mother protecting her family, especially one who has finally seen the truth with open eyes. Tomorrow I would begin. I woke before dawn the next morning. The house was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that settles only when two people have cried themselves to sleep behind a closed bedroom door. I paused outside Connor and Paisley's room, hearing nothing but the soft hum of the heater. They needed time, but Mama wasn't going to give us any. So I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and began planning. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with clarity. This wasn't just about Paisley anymore. It wasn't just about my son. It was about a woman who believed she could manipulate families like chess pieces and walk away unchallenged. Not today. By mid-morning, Paisley emerged from the bedroom, her face pale, her eyes swollen from crying. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of her past had finally settled onto her shoulders. Good morning, I said softly. She nodded. I didn't sleep much. I know. A pause. And Connor? She asked, voice trembling. He's in the shower, I said. He wants to talk later, but he's calm. Paisley, he isn't angry with you, just worried. Tears welled in her eyes again. I don't deserve him. I reached for her hand. Then spend the rest of your life proving that you do, I said. But don't punish yourself for what someone else forced on you. She nodded slowly, as if absorbing the words in pieces. A minute later, Connor walked into the kitchen, hair damp, expression gentle. Hey, he said softly. Paisley turned to him, and for a moment her fear eclipsed everything. He stepped forward, cupped her face, and kissed her forehead. I'm right here, he whispered. When you're ready, we'll figure this out. Paisley nodded, tears spilling over. I stepped away to give them space, but Connor called after me. Mom, stay, please. So I stayed. Paisley took a shaky breath. I want to tell you everything, but I need to start small. Connor nodded, and she began. Her story was tangled, threads of abandonment, fear, survival. She spoke of the group home Mama controlled like a prison, dressed up as charity. She spoke of the way Mama singled her out, trained her, invested in her future not out of love but expectation. She told me I owed her, Paisley whispered. Every answered call, every document I copied, every lie I told, it was all debt repayment in her mind. Connor listened, hands folded, jaw tight with restrained anger. At first, I thought marrying you would make her leave me alone, Paisley said. Because you're good, Connor, you're everything she is. Connor placed a hand over hers. You don't owe her your life. Paisley nodded slowly. I know that now. What about the financial documents? He asked gently. She winced. She wanted leverage. I didn't know what she planned to do with them. I never even opened them. I just handed them over because she said she'd take everything from me if I didn't. Connor took a deep breath, then exhaled. We'll handle it together. Something in Paisley broke then, not in weakness but in relief. She sobbed into his chest as he held her, strength radiating from him in quiet waves. I put a hand on his back. You're your father's son, I whispered. He nodded once, eyes wet. But the moment of soft reconciliation was interrupted by a knock on the door. 3 sharp knocks, not a neighbor, not a friend, not a delivery. I felt my heart seize. Stay here, I told them. I walked slowly to the front door, every step weighted with anticipation. When I opened it, my breath caught. It was Mama. It was 2 strangers in formal attire holding clipboards, representatives of the company Connor worked for. Mrs. Hale, one asked politely. We're here to speak with Connor regarding a possible breach of security. My blood ran cold. How did you? I started to ask. We received an anonymous tip this morning, the man said, claiming an internal employee's financial statements were stolen and redistributed. Anonymous tip, Mama, she was striking first. She wanted to punish Paisley for showing weakness. She wanted to punish our family for standing against her. She wanted to make it impossible for us to hide. I forced a calm smile. Please come in, I said. Connor and Paisley stood when the representatives entered. Paisley's hand flew to her mouth in horror, but Connor gently squeezed her arm. What's this about? He asked. The woman from the company cleared her throat. Mr. Hale, we received evidence that sensitive documents linked to your accounts were leaked. The source of the leak is still unclear, but we're required to perform an internal inquiry. Connor's jaw flexed. I understand, he said steadily. You can ask anything. Paisley looked like she might faint. The questions came one after another, procedural, polite, but piercing. Where did he keep his statements? Who had access? Did he suspect unauthorized activity? Connor glanced at Paisley only once, brief but filled with meaning. He didn't betray her. He didn't expose her. He didn't shift blame. He carried the weight alone in that moment, and that's when Paisley broke. I did it, she cried suddenly. Connor closed his eyes. The representatives paused, startled. Paisley stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. It was me. I took the documents, but Connor didn't know. He didn't help me. He didn't even suspect. He's innocent. Mrs. Hale, one began, we need to understand the circumstances. She did it under coercion, I said firmly. They turned to me. She was blackmailed by a woman who runs a group home she used to live in. This woman has been controlling her for years. My daughter-in-law isn't a criminal. She's a victim. Paisley sobbed harder. Connor put an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. The representatives exchanged a look, eyebrows raised, not in disbelief but concern. This complicates things, the woman admitted. We'll need an official statement, the man added, and possibly police involvement. Paisley froze. Police. Connor tightened his hold. It's okay, you're not alone anymore. The woman addressed Paisley gently. If someone is threatening you, we can help, but we'll need details about this, Mama. Paisley flinched at the name. Mama wasn't just a person. She was a threat Paisley had survived for years. Speaking her name aloud in a formal inquiry felt like lifting the lid on a box Paisley had kept locked deep inside herself. After a long pause, Paisley nodded weakly. I'll tell you everything, she whispered. I'm tired of being afraid. The representatives left with promises to follow up. When the door closed, Paisley collapsed on the floor. Connor and I knelt beside her. I ruined everything, she sobbed. No, I said, cupping her face. You brought the truth into the light. That takes courage. Connor wrapped his arms around her. We'll fix this, but we're doing it together. Paisley shook as she cried, but something in her posture shifted. Her shoulders loosened, her breath steadied. She was finally choosing to fight. Word spread faster than I expected. Connor's supervisor called him. A neighbor saw the representatives leaving our home. Another neighbor knocked to ask if everything was okay. Mama wanted to expose Paisley's life. She wanted to isolate her. Instead, Paisley's truth began gaining support. Connor stood beside his wife at every moment. I stood behind both of them. And when people asked, we answered honestly. She was coerced. She is safe now. For the first time in Paisley's life, people believed her, but not everyone was pleased. That evening, Mama struck again. A message arrived on Paisley's phone. You think you're safe. You think he'll still love you after this? You belong to me. I took the phone before Paisley could read it twice. No more, I said. I blocked the number, then I looked at Paisley and Connor with steady eyes. We take control now, I said. This ends on our terms? The fear that had clouded Paisley's face for days slowly shifted. Into resolve, into strength, into something Mama had never expected from her. Courage. The days that followed were unlike anything our family had ever lived through. Meetings, statements, calls from Connor's company. Visits from local authorities. Every day brought a new piece of the mess into the light. But strangely, every day also brought a little more clarity, a little more strength, especially for Paisley. It amazed me. The same woman who once trembled at the sight of her phone. The same woman who lived in constant fear of Mama's shadow was now showing a backbone she didn't even know she had. And Connor, my gentle son, became a fortress beside her. He handled every conversation with calm firmness, every meeting with quiet dignity. Every question with the certainty of a man who knew his wife's heart even if he didn't know her past. I watched him and felt something warm rise in my chest. Pride, not just in him, but in the family we were becoming. The breakthrough came on a Thursday afternoon. A detective visited the house, Detective Rivera, a woman with kind eyes but a voice that held unmistakable authority. She sat with us in the living room, notebook open, pen ready. Paisley, she began gently, I want you to know something before we continue. You're not the criminal here. From everything we've heard, you were manipulated and exploited by someone who preyed on vulnerable young women. Paisley swallowed hard. Detective Rivera continued, women like this, people who call themselves things like Mama, they operate in shadows. They depend on silence. But once someone shines a light, they lose power fast. I saw Paisley's shoulders ease slightly. So, Rivera said, tell me about her. And Paisley did, not in a single breath, not in a single story, but in pieces, broken pieces she had carried for years. She spoke of the group home that wasn't really a home, the promises that weren't really promises, the debts that weren't real debts, the punishments, the rewards, the fear, the manipulation dressed up as care. Why didn't you report her earlier? Rivera asked gently. Paisley stared at her hands. Because she made me believe no one would believe me. My heart clenched. Rivera nodded. They always do, that's how they keep control. When Paisley finished, she looked drained but lighter, as if her story, spoken aloud, had released something that had lived too long inside her. And what about the documents? Rivera asked. Paisley explained the coercion, the threats, the lies Mama used to force her into compliance. Rivera wrote everything down. Finally, she closed her notebook. Mrs. Hale, she said softly, you're not the first woman she's done this to. We've been gathering reports for months, but none were as clear or as willing to cooperate as yours. With your testimony and Connor's documents as evidence, we can move forward. Move forward how? I asked. Toward charges, Rivera said. Fraud, coercion, racketeering, identity exploitation, possibly more. Paisley's lips parted. She could go to prison? Yes, Rivera said, and frankly that's where she belongs. For the first time, Paisley didn't cry, she didn't tremble, she didn't shrink, she simply nodded. A quiet nod, a powerful one, a woman reclaiming her voice. The next day, Connor's company called with their decision. He wasn't being fired. He wasn't under investigation. He wasn't even being reprimanded. Instead, his supervisor said, we're adding safeguards to employee files, and we're grateful you came forward. Connor hung up the phone, exhaled, and pulled Paisley into a tight embrace. A long one filled with relief. I watched them from the doorway, his chin resting on her head, her hands gripping his shirt as if anchoring herself to the present rather than the past. They had been through a storm, but they were finding their ground again. As the investigation into Mama moved forward, something unexpected happened. Support began to arrive, from Connor's coworkers, from neighbors, from women who heard fragments of the story and said quietly, I'm glad she spoke up. More people should. People didn't shame Paisley, they protected her. They saw her not as a liar but as a survivor, not as someone who betrayed but as someone who was betrayed first, and I saw her start to stand differently, taller, steadier, more open. One evening she walked into the kitchen where I was cooking dinner and said, "Can I help?" It sounds like nothing, but it meant everything, because she hadn't cooked with me in weeks. Fear had turned her inward, closed her off. But now she reached for the cutting board with steady hands. As we sliced vegetables, she spoke softly. "Thank you," she said, "for not giving up on me." I looked at her and the kitchen felt warmer than usual, the kind of warmth that doesn't come from the stove. "I didn't give up on you," I said. "I saw the part of you that Mama tried to break, and I knew that part deserved protection." Her eyes shimmered. "I'm starting to believe that," she whispered. We cooked in silence after that, not an awkward silence, but a peaceful one. A healing one, the kind that grows in the space where fear used to live. The call came a week later, Detective Rivera again. "Mrs. Hale," she said, "I thought you'd like to know, we detained her this morning." Paisley froze. "Mama?" I asked. "Yes." "We executed a search warrant at her residence. We found evidence of coercion, financial manipulation, and illegal acquisition of personal records. She's not going anywhere." Paisley sat down hard, hand over her mouth. Rivera continued, "I can't disclose names, but several former residents from the group home stepped forward after your statement. You gave them the courage to speak." When the call ended, Paisley whispered, "She isn't coming back." "No," I said, pulling her into a hug. "She's not coming back." Her sob wasn't fear this time, it was release, relief, freedom, a lifetime of fear leaving her lungs in one long, shaking breath. Later that night, Connor joined us on the porch. Paisley leaned her head on his shoulder and he wrapped an arm around her, thumb tracing gentle circles on her arm. The summer air was warm, crickets sang in the yard, the wind rustled the leaves of the old elm tree. "My dad used to sit out here every night," Connor murmured. "He always said peace wasn't something you find, it's something you build." Paisley smiled faintly. "Then I guess we're building something." Connor kissed the top of her head. "Yes, we are." I reached over and took Paisley's other hand. "You're safe," I said, "and you're loved." Her grip tightened around my fingers. "I believe that now," she whispered. And for the first time since she entered my home, I saw her fully, not the girl shaped by fear. Not the woman trapped by someone else's control, but the daughter I gained the moment she fell into my arms at that storage unit, crying for a life she thought she didn't deserve. The woman who was now slowly, day by day, learning that she did. A daughter not by blood, but by choice, by trust, by healing. The house felt different after Mama's arrest. Not louder, not busier, just lighter, like someone had opened every window and let out years of stale air. Paisley walked differently now. She smiled, more small, hesitant smiles at first, then full ones that reached her eyes. Her voice steadied. Her hands stopped trembling. She held her head a little higher when she walked into a room, as if she finally believed she had the right to take up space in it. And Connor, well, he watched her with the kind of quiet admiration a man has for someone who has survived fire without losing the softness of her spirit. One evening, about a week after Mama was taken into custody, Paisley and I stood on the porch watching the sun settle behind the trees. The sky was a soft, golden orange, warm, comforting, the kind of sky that makes you breathe a little deeper. She leaned against the railing, fingers tracing the grain of the wood. "I've never felt this calm before," she said quietly. I nodded. "Freedom feels like that." She glanced at me. "Is that what this is?" "Yes," I said softly. "It's the beginning of it." A small smile tugged at her lips. "I don't know what to do with it. I've never had space in my life that wasn't filled with someone's demands." "Well," I said, gently touching her arm, "maybe it's time to fill it with your own choices." She looked out over the yard again. "Choices," she repeated. "That's new to me." We stayed silent a while, listening to the crickets. I thought she was done speaking, but then she whispered, "I hope Connor doesn't regret choosing me." My heart softened. "Paisley," I said, "my son didn't choose you because you were perfect. He chose you because he saw something in you worth loving, and now that the truth is out, he sees even more." Her eyes glistened. "I just want to be good for him, for both of you." "You already are?" She wiped a tear quickly, embarrassed. "Sorry, I cry too easily now." "No," I told her, "you cry because you're finally safe enough to feel." She breathed in sharply, as if no one had ever said that to her before. Later that night, Connor came out to the porch carrying a blanket. "You two okay?" he asked, draping it over Paisley's shoulders. "Yes," she said softly, "better than I've ever been." He tucked the blanket around her and kissed the top of her head. "I need to talk to Mom for a minute," he said gently. Paisley nodded and stepped inside, giving us space. Connor sat beside me, elbows on his knees. "Mom," he started, "I want to ask you something." "Go ahead." He turned toward me, face serious. "Did you know?" He asked, about her past, about what she went through. "No," I said truthfully, "not until it started falling apart." He nodded slowly. I keep thinking about how scared she must have been, he said. How alone. She isn't alone now, I reminded him. I know, he said, but part of me hates that she lived through all that, and part of me hates that I didn't know. I rested a hand on his arm. You know it now, I told him, and knowing the truth doesn't weaken a marriage. It strengthens it if you choose to walk through it together. He sighed. I want to help her, I want to protect her, but I don't know how. Start with patience, I said, and keep choosing her every day, not just when it's easy. He nodded. She deserves that, he murmured. And you deserve her, I added. His eyes softened. You like her, don't you? I more than like her, I said gently. I see her, I understand her. And I know that any woman who can walk through what she walked through and still love, that is a rare kind of woman. He smiled, quiet and grateful. I'm glad you're her mother-in-law, he said. And I replied, am glad she's my daughter. It was the first time I said the word daughter without hesitation. It felt right, natural, true. Time has a way of smoothing edges, even sharp ones. Within the month, Connor's company officially cleared him. Paisley supplied her full testimony to the authorities. More women came forward with their own stories about Mama. A formal case was built, charges were filed, Mama tried to fight it. Of course she did. People who thrive on control don't surrender easily, but the evidence was too strong, the testimonies too many, the truths too loud. And when the news finally reached us that she had accepted a plea arrangement to avoid trial, Paisley exhaled a breath she'd been holding for years. She can't hurt you anymore, Connor told her gently. I know, she whispered. For the first time, I truly know. Later that evening, Paisley sat with me in the living room while I mended one of Connor's shirts. She watched my hands move thread through fabric, stitch by stitch. You fix things, she said suddenly. I looked up. I suppose I do, at least when it comes to shirts. No, she said, shaking her head. People, you fix people. I smiled softly. Oh, sweetheart, I don't fix people. I hold them until they remember how to stand. Her eyes filled with tears. You held me, she whispered, and I always will. Weeks passed, then months. Paisley began therapy, something she once feared but now embraced. Connor took on a new position at work, more responsibility, more stability. I watched their marriage deepen, not because everything was perfect, but because everything was honest. Paisley started helping me in the garden again, humming softly as she clipped basil stems. Sometimes she'd pause, close her eyes, and breathe in the scent of fresh leaves like it grounded her. One afternoon, she looked at me and said, I think I want to go back to school. For social work, to help girls like me. My heart swelled. You'd be wonderful at it. She nodded, hope flickering in her eyes like the first stars at dusk. I want my life to mean something more than what she tried to make it, she said. I want to turn something painful into something good. You already are, I said. She smiled, a real one, bright, steady, the kind of smile that comes from freedom. We'll never be a perfect family. No family is, but we became a true one. Built on honesty, on healing, on compassion. And sometimes late in the evenings, I sit on the porch with a cup of tea and listen to Connor and Paisley laughing inside the house. Their laughter feels like a song I didn't know I needed, a reminder that storms can pass. A reminder that broken things can be mended. A reminder that the past does not get to define the future unless we let it. Paisley is no longer the trembling woman who hid text messages behind her back. She is a survivor, a fighter, a wife, a daughter, my daughter. Chosen not by blood but by courage, and I thank God every day that I was given the chance to love her.